Here.
Dan Ornstein is absent at the moment, and Mark Eastman is here. The first item on the agenda to talk about is discontinued road discussion review.
Yes, I provided you all with some information last time, and it primarily centers around actions that were taken in 1981 regarding the abandonment of 14 roads or segments of roads.
Did you want to say this, Mark?
I thought
In the town of Bucksmore.
I thought you might.
And an issue has been raised in regard to one of them, which basically goes through the dooryard of a resident, and which has seen a significant increase in activity due to the fact that some improvements were done on a segment of it. And so the question is, the issue is that at the time the town discontinued these roads, it was after 1965, and if a road was discontinued after 1965, in order to give up the public easement on that road, the discontinuance or abandonment order had to state that it was giving up the public easement. And in regard to these 14 roads or road segments, that was not done, which means that a public easement continues to exist over these roads or segments of roads. And the question is whether or not there's a need or a public purpose to retaining these public easements over all or some of these roads, or if, as has been practiced with these, that people have accessed from other areas as opposed to, for example, the one that goes through the driveway, pretty much. And whether or not the town stepping away from a public easement, and which would in essence just force it to go back to the way it was, which is people were accessing from the other way that they can access their lots, that would work. There are some on this, such as Upper Long Pond, which now has the Great Pond Mountain Conservation Trust as ownership. The town giving up the public easement would be a bad idea in that case, because people are being drawn to that for that purpose, and that's how they access that road. That's one of the roads on here. Willis Road, beyond where it currently ends, it's a moot point. There's nothing there. There's nowhere to go to get in that area now. But as I said, the change in use of Gullies Road is kind of what's brought up this question of looking at these roads to see if the public easement is still there's still really a need for a public easement to be retained for that purpose. And so we've got all these different ones you can look at. I provided you with what the vote was, how they did it. I don't know how exactly you want to consider these, but as I said, the Gullies Road is the one that's the most difficult because of the I'm trying to think of the right word, the fact that the negative impact that it has on the property owner's driveway that it goes through when it wasn't used in that manner or that purpose for many years, and now is being used that way by people who formerly access their lots through a different means than that way.
Okay.
I think tried to explain it as best I can, but whatever I've missed, I can fill in, but the question is, in looking over these, I'm sure everybody knows where these are, and this is not an unusual occurrence. We did Second Street, if you remember,
Yes.
about 5 years ago. We were approached by people who asked that public easement on Second Street be abandoned. We did that. There was no reason for the town to retain it, so.
If I recall correctly, there was some sewer lines that ran
Yeah.
through there or something that
Yeah, they need to be.
made it, yeah. It was
We retained the
questionable.
maintenance easement, but that
Right.
was it.
And the rest of them really have, which one is the race course? Is that Donovan Lane? The old Donovan Lane that was given up while you were here, Kathy?
Racecourse Road right up.
I know where race course is,
Yeah, I'm just
but
trying to think.
what else? It must be Donovan, because, and maybe it wasn't named at the time, because that's the only road I can think of that used to go through there. Goes out to where Gypsies were.
Mhm.
And so,
Isn't that,
well, that may not be, because I think that was reverted back to abutters back in 10, 12 years ago.
I can't even remember.
If we do this, what happens, the people that own on the road or beyond the road would still retain an easement?
Yeah, I can't stop people from
Well, I mean, but in general, I mean, I'm
access
in
that
general.
property, but there are only 3
Well,
landowners
I know.
on this road.
Right, right. I'm just asking in general, is that how it works?
Yeah, if you determine that you want to extinguish a public easement, you would make a recommendation to the council, we'd have a public hearing, and that's the process to extinguish it the same way
Try.
they did that. And it limits access to owners of property on the road that's identified.
So like Colson Road, those that need access via Colson Road would still retain access?
That's correct.
Okay.
What about guests?
What's that?
What about guests?
Well, I think that would be, up to the owner, would it not? Just like if you have a right-of-way.
I'm just saying.
I don't have
One
an
of the
answer.
property owners is Airbnb down in there, and his guests that are going to the Airbnb are the ones that are driving through there, as well as the owner, but
They only use that road for recreational purposes. It's not an access for them. It's just for recreation. They come out through on their bicycles or their four-wheelers or hiking or whatever, I'm not gonna stop people from hiking, recreational use. I just don't want steady run of traffic. Again, renters or landowners that don't own land on the road that I own.
Go ahead, Kathy.
Can they get through there from Jacob Box area?
Yes, they can.
I thought there was a road there.
That
Yep.
was wasn't that the primary access prior to the improvements that were done?
Okay, technically, I
Well,
have not
let's stop,
seen.
Jim, just because, when you're speaking now, you're speaking as a citizen as opposed to a council, so I think we'd have to have you speak
You
up.
come
Oh,
to
yeah,
the-
well,
Yep.
no problem.
so we-
Just so we stay in line.
Jim Morrison, East Bucksport. The road that runs from Jacob Buck's Pond down through to where their road cuts off of the road and goes down, that's on the Jacob Buck's Pond end. There is no access from my end to that road that runs down to their camp, other than where they crossed a swamp area down at the bottom of the hill just before the Grist Mill Road and continued that road onto the Grist Mill Road, which in turn runs back toward Woods Common and actually hits the Gullies Road, which for years that's what was called, the Gullies Road. And we understood it to be all the way through, but I just read a map not long ago that claims that the Jacob Buck's Pond Road runs from where they're fixing the bridge out here, right straight through to,
I think it was renamed, it was originally Gully's Road, but I think it was renamed after the abandoned Gully's Road or something, because it did change in the past 10,
right,
12
because
years.
when they abandoned it, if you look at the information closely, they only abandoned my end.
That's right.
They didn't abandon the upper and the end that runs through to Jacob Bucks.
Okay, yep.
And that runs to the top of the hill, and the hill opposite my hill, that comes down around and comes back and hits the road again down by the Gristmill Road. And so we're really just talking about, like I said, there's only 3 landowners that own property on that piece that I'd like to see abandoned.
Okay. Any questions, anybody for Dan? You good? Okay. Thank you, Jim.
Is this a time for anyone?
Yeah, if you'd like to go up and say something, you certainly can.
Harold Morrison, out in Hueytown, East Bucksport, part owner of that piece of property. I'm 70 years old. I've about had it with what's going on in the country. So my assumption is, and I'd like to know if I can do this, I'm going to gate the road with a lock. Anybody that needs to go in there can get permission. The key will be at Jimmy's house, which is at the end of the road. And COVID's not a good thing. Monkeypox is coming around. I'm going to have some restrictions on people crossing my property because I own it. I think I have the right, as well as Laverty is, not Laverty is anymore. I've been in town for a while, I guess. Rite Aid. No shirt, no shoes, no service. They own the building. They can do that, correct?
If the town gives up a public access across that, the lots beyond, the lots on that still have access there.
Yes, I agree.
They're allowed.
I agree.
But the gating of it would have to be some sort of a joint decision because though they have unfettered access to those. You know what I mean? You can't prevent them from.
If they have, when you solve this all out, if they have the permission to go across there.
Well,
If they do not have land on that
No,
stretch
it
of
would only
road.
be the people
that have the deed
that
reference to
have
an
the
access.
deed
Okay,
to the lots that are accessed
by that road.
The section of the road that was discontinued in 1981. Those from where your place is down to, I think, are there 3 lots there? Yours
To the
and 2
Gristmill,
others?
yes.
Those other 2 lots, we can't landlock them. They retain rights to access that way because that's their only way to get there.
If it's not their only way, then they shouldn't be traveling that way.
Well, if they have deeded access, you can't negate it, that's all.
I agree with that. That will be checked into to see that it does say
Fair enough?
the original deeds, not some copy that they've had printed off, but,
I mean, a title search would bear that out. I mean,
Okay.
To an attorney.
all right?
Yeah.
I'll go along with that.
Yeah.
I have farm animals out there. They drive through our pasture to get down in there. Like I said, I'd like to be able, since I have to pay the taxes and own the piece, I'd like to be able to restrict what goes on that piece of property.
I mean, if it's an easement, you'd have to take that up with an attorney. If somebody has a direct easement, if we give up access, yeah, they would not, those individuals would not be allowed on that.
That's the
It would become a
easement.
cil matter between property owners if you gated it and the town had no legal interest in the.
Okay?
It would be a civil matter between you and the other, or whoever the other 2 are beyond you that have a legal access to
Yes.
their lots via that road.
Okay, I understand all that. I guess what I'm actually pushing right here is, when you consider what's going to go on, consider what I'm saying. That I don't want people just wandering freely through there. I have the farm animals there. I don't need to go out and see one of them mules laid out. You know what I mean? I would like to be able to control who crosses my property.
Right.
As far as the gate goes, all they gotta do is knock on his door and that gate will be opened, if they're allowed to be down there.
If the town backs away, it's a civil issue, it's not, we have no jurisdiction over that.
Okay?
If the town
But
gives up.
there are, the two other owners that we're talking about, you and the two, I would think that the most successful way to do is to everyone have a conversation about, because I'm not sure, from what I've heard, there was someone here last time who also didn't want.
Yes, he owns the dam lot
Right.
on Thurston's. And he has, other than town right-of-way through there, he has the right-of-way that was originally for the dam, where the gristmill was, through Eastern Fine Paper when they were in business, and then whoever took over, Prentice and Carlisle, or whoever took over their official business, retained that easement that gives them the right-of-way to go across my property on the lower end to get in there, off the end of the gristmill road. So, but he came to me, and he came to Harold, and he asked permission to cross our property and to make the improvements on that road. All we told him was, you're opening a can of worms.
And here we are.
Yeah.
He's one of the other two lots past you.
No.
No.
Yes, he is now, because he bought the piece off Sheridan Davis that ran down and just hits the bottom of the Gully Hill.
Okay.
So
Right.
he's actually on, part of his land is on our road, yes. Our road.
Okay.
This might be a dumb question. Maybe you said this and I missed it. So have you had conversations with the people that are driving down through
Yes,
that are and you've asked them not to drive through those parts of your property?
yes.
I've just got my skin healed up from the burns from talking to him.
Well,
We don't need to drop any names, but if you get a chance to converse with him, you can go black.
The people that own the next two lots to you, is it my understanding, you're not in contention with them?
Not at all.
Okay, so the discontinuance of the public easement shouldn't create a neighborhood war between the property owners that access via that way, right? Because there's only a very limited number of them.
well, do we know
Right.
that definitively?
Right, and they, from the time their camp was built down there, they accessed from the Jacob Box Pond end. Go out, leave their house, go up to the Turkey Path, go back into Jacob Box Pond, and they got a nice built road that runs right down to their camp. From our end, they weren't using it because it was in such bad state of repair. And these people that bought the dam lot, Mr. Matthew and his wife, they put the improvements to it. It's better than some of the roads we got tarred out here. So he decided that, well, good, I'll use that road. And I told him, no, you're not crossing. Well, I didn't tell him. I just put the word out, no, he's not crossing my property because he doesn't own land on that road. So he went ahead and they went into this purchasing war where they were purchasing pieces of land up there. One would buy this and another one would buy that. And one of the maps that I looked at showed that he owns the Gristmill Road. Well, his wife owns the Gristmill Road. Well, she doesn't. She owns the piece of property that's up beside the power line that they put through. And on that map, it shows that Gristmill Road running right down the middle of that and being the road that they put in there to access their camps. They're calling that the Gristmill Road. Well, it's not. Gristmill Road comes from another area, runs in another spot.
I've been right there since I was born, a couple of years in Connecticut and some time in the Marine Corps. And as far as I understood, when the person purchased the side of that pond, Thurston's Farm, he put in an access road from the Jacob Ox Pond Road in. That's why earlier I mentioned the original deed, because I would assume, I haven't read it, and I probably shouldn't assume anything, that his original deed would say access to his camp from Jacob's Pond and down that road that they put in specifically for those campsites. That's what's irritating me, is he's not going by the rules that were laid out to him. I understand you folks can't jump in and say, you're done. It's gonna end up somewhere else.
It's a process.
All I'm asking is, when you make your decisions, you take into consideration and go out and talk to him and get his side of it if you'd like. Take into consideration what we've laid out to you today.
Fair enough.
And like I said, we've lived there our entire life, so we pretty much get a grip on what's going on up there. And I hope it doesn't come to blows, because I don't give up, and I don't intend to. But I'm not gonna threaten the man or harm him in any way. I just would like this situation cleared up.
Understood.
And if there's nothing you actually can do about it, let us know so we can continue on from there.
Can do.
All right? I thank you very much for your time. Appreciate it. Have a good day.
Thank you. So, anybody have a motion? Anything they want?
So,
This, the question, I'm gonna lay out
yeah,
the question.
lay it out for me.
Okay, I will.
Because I know the situation, but like,
The question is, and it's complicated by the fact that one of the council members is impacted, but I'm going to put that in perspective too. If anyone else had come to us with a similar situation, being as negatively impacted by a course of events that the town had done, in which the town had we own nothing out there.
that's my question.
We got nothing. I mean, there's a cemetery, but that's separate from this issue.
Yeah.
What would we do if someone came to us and an abandoned road that literally cuts through their driveway
Yeah.
started being used like a regular road? We preserved a public easement. We didn't preserve a thoroughfare. Public easement is a completely different thing. And there's a question about how much improvements were done on and whether that was even appropriate, because it was a public easement that somebody cleared. But apart from that, the number of lots that access the discontinued, abandoned portion of this road is small. There's not a lot. That those lots would retain access because they don't lose it if they give up a public easement. That's their way to access it. Well, what it does is limit to those lots that regular access for people who go via Jacob Buck Pond go via Jacob Buck Pond. That becomes the arbiter of this. Now, so if you think that it's a good idea or that it makes sense to extinguish this public easement so that this property owner that is negatively property owners who are negatively impacted by an increase in a road use that has not been in decades used in this manner
Until recent improvements.
until recent improvements, which were, we
Privately
didn't
done.
approve them, we didn't,
Well, he did it under his authority with the deeded access, the
Yeah.
deeded right of way.
that's correct.
And-
But it didn't,
Right. it
or
did-
shouldn't necessarily open it up to the whole world to, because, you know, there isn't another way to fix this that doesn't, this negative impact, without giving up the town's public easement to that, which then limits to the property owners beyond that access and others. the
So
other way.
basically it takes it out of our.
We no
court,
longer have any
And-
rights.
And it allows the people that live on that road to do what they need to, whether it's legally or gated or.
Whether they end up in civil question or they, you know, gate, not the end by this, the other end, you know, to prevent the
Coming up.
going through or coming up, you know, that where the public access ends, you know, they put up a gate or they, whatever they do to try and prevent people from just,
With their generation owning on that farm. My grandfather bought it in the 40s, and we never had a problem, never. The people that owned land down there all lived out in Hueytown, the Davises and the whoever. And they wouldn't even use it to go access their properties. They went all the way around to Jacob Buck's Pond and access through there. That was for decades, it was done that way.
So I'm not seeing any negative impact to the town to give up that easement.
they've
Well, really,
we've not
all-
landlocked anyone.
Yeah.
No.
Okay. So.
People all have access to what they need to access, and if there are people who don't agree with it, they would have to file a civil action, but not against the town, but
Well, and anybody that feels they have a right within the town's easement could come forward through a public hearing and make that known.
that's right. But which is why if you want to move forward this way, we would schedule a public hearing at the next council meeting to discuss the extinguishment of the public easement on the section of Ellie's Road that was abandoned in July 9th, 1981.
Well, Dan, do you see any reason not to bring all of them up and just do this all at once, you know?
No.
I don't want to give up the public access
On
on
Upper Long Pond, right,
Yeah.
but the rest of them don't carry a purpose.
I don't know that they have a purpose, but I don't know that we don't own land in some areas.
So let's worry about this one. So.
Okay.
I would start with that one.
With a future discussion of the others.
Yes, this, as I said, this is the only one that
We know.
negative, really, the changed use of this abandoned road negatively impacts people in a big way. That's not the case for
So
any of these.
I'll make a motion to send forward to the council
A public hearing,
a public hearing on
Extinguishing the,
public easement.
extinguishing the public easement. Thanks, guys.
I'll second that.
There you go.
Okay, all in favor? Okay. All right, so, next item, item 4.
Thanks, guys.
Motion adjourned.
You got a second, Jim?
Second,
All in favor?
I can do that.
Okay,
So it's
meeting adjourned.